Matthew Egan is the boss of the football department. He was on the radio today speaking for the first time about the troubles at the Dogs.
I've been blown away with how aggressive some of the comments have been in the media about a guy who's been coaching 10 years at the footy club with a grand final win, and obviously being in the grand final only 3 years ago. It feels like it's been a little bit aggressive and personal against Bevo. We're not developing. There's no doubt we're in it for the win now, and there's no reason why we bring in players like Caulfield and Harms to try to help build our depth as a footy club. So we're definitely in it to win this year.
A couple of aspects to take out of that, and we'll deal with them in, I suppose, chronological order. The siege mentality that this club has now got, and the convincing itself of the personal nature of criticism against the club being directed at Luke Beveridge, I find that staggering. I think it's been really balanced. I mean, look, maybe there's been one or two, and if you take Sam Draper's comments out of it, I think it's been widely balanced. But so that's one aspect of it. The second part of it was we're here for the now. That's different to what some people, maybe the coach himself, through his own actions as much as his words, is saying.
I think they're under pressure because we all expect more from them. And I think that even Matthew Egan himself there says we're in it for the now, and we've brought in James Harms and whoever else to the list because they thought they were going to be better than what they were. So it's amazing, Eddie, how quickly it's changed from where the Dogs were pre-season to where it is now. They don't seem like they're on the same page, which is why they're under pressure.
Well, let's listen to Luke Beveridge early pre-season this year, because a lot changes in 9 weeks of football, including injuries. But let's have a listen to what he said back then.
So the team that represents the football club against Melbourne in round 1 of the MCG will be our fittest, strongest and most ready team that has ever taken the field in the 9 years I've been here.
Yeah, we're humming. It's a really energetic environment.
Just what you said.
Yeah, so that sort of rang true for me today, sitting here at round 9 and hearing that in the pre-season. And I just, why I'm critical and I'm questioning whether Luke's still the right man is because there's just so many players who are out of form, who are good quality players. And that's when I ask, I think I judge a coach on, is he getting the best? Like Craig McRae last year was getting so much out. Think of McCreary and Frampton and Oleg Markov. Players like that, Brody Myercheck, these are guys that have come from nowhere and are playing unbelievable football. Whereas I look at the Western Bulldogs and I see highly talented players that, for whatever reason, just can't find any form. And I think it's because of the lack of consistency within the club. And that's why I think he's under enormous pressure.
You don't make your comments lightly when you assess people. Do you feel they'd get more with another coach?
Yeah, I think it'd be an unbelievable job to get at the Western Bulldogs next year, and I think they could rebound pretty hard with a fresh set of eyes.
So, Damien, can I ask you, let's go through the timeline, because there's been at least 3 occasions where they've had this discussion, obviously at board level, and that goes back to re-signing and everything in between.
It does. Just take a look at what's on screen now. And if you go back even a few months or a year earlier than that September 22 referencing there, they made a grand final. So it was in their minds in that 2022 year. 7 goals up in an elimination final. Now, in December of that year, they re-signed Luke Beveridge for 2024 and 2025. He already had 2023 on the books. They finished last season missing the 8, and then 1 year after, less than 1 year after they re-signed him, they then announced an external review and bring in the football Mr. Fix-It, Peter Jackson, to come in. And now the parameters on that review, Ed, depending on who you speak to, you know the way this works better than anyone. Some people will say that Luke Beveridge's tenure itself was part of the review. Some will say that was working backwards from him being a given as coach. The truth, as always, is in the middle. But what we're saying here, 8 matches after the review, and a season and 8 matches after re-signing him, they're back in this holding pattern of not knowing whether he will be their coach of the future. Certainly, there's no guarantees on 2025.
Lloyd, how long does the Premiership glow stay on a coach?
I think it gives you 5, 6, up to close to 10 years if you win a Premiership. We've seen it with Adam Simpson as well in the last 12 months. But look at this, since Luke Beveridge won the grand final, they've only won a final in 1 season since in the last 8 years. I don't think they'll win a final this year. So it's been 6 of the last 7 seasons. It should be 7 of the last 8 seasons. So we keep hearing, Matthew Egan and these people, he's a grand final coach, he's a Premiership coach, and he'll be a Bulldog legend for life. Luke Beveridge.
He deserves to be.
He deserves to, that's right, and he deserves to be.
I mean, they were good enough to have Melbourne on toast at three-quarter time. Fell over in the last quarter, obviously.
But for the here and the now, I think it's bought him a lot of extra time. But I'm not seeing how he gets out of this one.
The takeaway for me, and just going back half a step, Damo, when you went through the timeline of re-signing him, is when you take a coach or you buy a coach, you're buying for an extra couple of years, you're buying his plan as well, because he's got to present that. And so part of presenting that is actually where the list's at, where we are, the old Premiership clock as we use. And so to have the CEO and then your head of football say, we're in it for the now, but then a bit of the messaging being, well, we've got to change some positions, we've got to build, we've got to come back up the ladder. I wonder if that was the messaging at the time, because it doesn't sound like it from other leaders in that group.
This may be hard for you to answer, but I've had it put to me by a club that what we're seeing now with Luke Beveridge is Leon Cameron 2.0. Now, you're a director of that club, and what that referencing was to what happened to Leon Cameron 2 years ago, where the season started, he was out of contract, you gave him close to half a season, made the call. Do you see that?
Well, there's a lot of similarities. Of course, both 9 years in the game, both made grand finals. Of course, Luke's made 2 and won 1, so massive tick for him. But Leon won finals at every stage, so very successful without getting the ultimate success at the Giants. And I'm a bit with Lloyd. There comes a certain point, there's, what's that term? There's only so many different ways you can cook the sausages. I think one coach referenced...
Alan Jeans. You can curry them, you can fry them. It doesn't matter, they're still sausages.
Yeah, well, I think even Damien Hardwick used it when he left Richmond as well. But sometimes a new coach can come in and build off an old coach, and that's where you want to get. So it's a decision that the Bulldogs leadership has to make. Do we just need a fresh face come pre-season next year to give a different message?
They had the day off training yesterday, went down to St Kilda Beach. How many times can you do those types of things? A new coach does it, maybe it's fresh. How hard is it to go into the trick bag for somebody like Bevo at the moment, who's such a passionate coach? I don't think anyone underestimates his coaching ability or his ability. I think he'd be a first coach you'd pick up if he left. There'd be plenty lining up for him. But, we always say that the old saying is, the DJ's sick of the song before the public hear it, but it can work the other way as well. Once the public are sick of the song, they're turning off. Yeah. What do you reckon? For somebody like Bontempelli, for example, who's an exemplar in that side.
And I think that's what it's going to come down to. I think the administrators at the club will, over the next month, 6 weeks, they'll be able to smell the breeze. And I've been seeing this guy, he's giving his all for the club. He's getting no support from his teammates, and he's getting dejected. He's achieved everything in the game. He just wants another premiership. He wants to challenge again one more time, and that's not happening for him. So I think once the players start saying or sensing, and the club starts sensing that he hasn't got them anymore, well, then that's when it's trouble for the coach.
It's a pretty defining period, Damo. Yeah. The next 5 weeks, Richmond, GWS, Sydney, Collingwood and Brisbane there. Wow. The Richmond one's a massive one, isn't it? The others, they're probably not starting at the moment based on form. I'm just saying, at the moment, they're not starting favourites in the remaining 4.
No, they're not. And that's why I use the term holding pattern on where they're at right now. And it must be said, and we are believing we're balanced in this reporting, as we like to be all the time. There's no move inside the club on him at the moment, and that needs to be made clear. They are absolutely backing him, and at 3 and 5, they are still convinced that they can turn it around. So
quickly, before we move on, you had Sheeds for a long, long time. You were there when Essendon said, right, that's enough of Sheeds, and haven't played in the final since. So you want to be careful moving on somebody who can really coach, because there's not that many out there who can. So I hasten to add to the Western Bulldogs, be very careful what you wish for in these situations. How did Sheeds freshen it up? I know Mick Malthouse wasn't into the gimmicks, and he was able to keep sides up for the best part of 30 years.
I like what Chris Scott's done over the off-season with where he's got his assistant coaches from and seasoned campaigners, and they may say we've done a bit of the same at the Western Bulldogs, but that's the key. Bring in fantastic assistants who will challenge you. Those that will challenge you and stand up to you. And I still see strange selections at the Western Bulldogs which have continued on. And it's why they are no good in the first half of the season. Then they finally pick the side they should be picking, and they come home with a rush, but then it's all too late. It's the same story every year.